when 40% of the working force is just working wherever, that's a huge change. And everybody kind of dismisses it or groans about it. But I go, yes, but they're experiencing freedom.
Like millions of people around the world, we need to work. Some do it for the money, others do it for the recognition. And if you're lucky, you do it because you love it. But finding purpose and passion in your work can be easier said than done, and the path to success can be unpredictable at best. But if you're looking for some inspiration, then I've got one question for you. Are you consuming your career, or is it consuming you? Welcome to Consuming Careers. Have you ever considered the power of having a clearly defined point of view? Hi, I'm Bruce Smith, and in this episode of Consuming Careers, we're talking with Jeremy Garlington, who has spent his career not only guiding leaders in articulating their unique points of view, but also shares how his personal point of view has evolved while navigating the adversity in his own life. So let's join my conversation with Jeremy on the roof of B&W Burgers, Buns, and Brews in historic Norcross, Georgia. You ready?
Yes.
All right.
Go, man. I'm ready.
Okay, I like it. Well, welcome back to Consuming Careers. It's really a beautiful night out tonight in downtown Norcross, and I've got Jeremy Garlington, a longtime friend, and so excited to have you on the show, Jeremy. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm excited too. This is great, and this is very well organized.
Thank you.
I'm pretty impressed.
Are you saying that because you've got an old-fashioned in your hand? Or...
Oh, no, I don't have an old-fashioned. It's on the table.
Oh, that's right.
And I'm
that's
not
right.
old-fashioned. I'm new-fashioned.
Yeah.
So.
Well, where are we tonight, Jeremy?
Oh, where are we? We are here to talk about what's meaningful, what's difference-making, and also what's not. Because I've acquired a point of view around all of this, and that's my main mantra. You know, your views and values really determine a lot, and you got to be ready to share them. So I'm thrilled to be here today with you.
Well, you went a mile deep right out of the gate. Here I was just asking, like, tell me about the restaurant we're in.
Well, I can see your
you
papers.
Are wound up. You're wound up.
Your papers are full, man. I can see we got a lot to talk about.
That's right. Well, we're at B&W Burgers and Brew in downtown Norcross, Georgia. And we're on the roof, which is, it's a beautiful fall night. Yeah. It's, what is it? The sun is just now going down. Yep. Got some traffic in the street. We're well above the street. Just looking around, we've got just beautiful fall colors around us.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to a train coming.
A train. We do have a train track literally 100 feet from our microphones. So if that comes blowing by, we may have to do the pause button.
You know,
for
I
a
was
few
just
seconds.
in Europe, and trains are very efficient. A little more efficient than cars, but you can't go in that direction in the United States of America.
Well, and I also want to thank Jimmy, owner of B&W Burgers and Brews.
Here's to Jimmy,
who made this possible for us to come up here and helped us start it off with an old fashioned and some water. So thank you, Jimmy. Let's get back to you, Jeremy. Can you just give us a quick, 30 seconds on what are you doing now? What do you do? Just what does that look like?
Well, I mean, a lot of what I do hasn't changed. I mean, I'm a consultant who's worked in the areas of branding, both with institutions and executives. But I'm known more as the point of view guy because that's the name I've used. And point of view really is cover for, hey, who are you? What are your values? Yeah. What do you want to show or not show, or what do you want to take forward?
Sure.
Because in these days, if you go up a certain level, there are men and women that really want to make a difference, really want to stand out.
Yeah, sure.
And, we're living in an age where to stand out takes kind of a multitude of efforts and results, because if you don't have that, then you're just another person on social media, which is a whole nother discussion, because that's a vast crowd.
Yeah, and we can maybe get to that later.
Okay.
And just looking at your LinkedIn profile, you right at the top it says leadership branding.
Right.
And so, just a quick question. Maybe it's not a quick question. Maybe it's a long question. But
right.
Why is that important? And why should anyone care about?
There's one word that comes up for me with leadership branding, and that's change.
Okay.
If someone who is leading a company or leading a division or is finding themselves not being able to move forward or, make a certain step, if they have to take a pivot sometimes, they need somebody to decipher what's real and what's not real. And that's another thing with the growth of internet and the growth of people doing things, so differently and multi-channels.
Yeah, sure.
They really have to be able to speak clearly and present something that's highly differentiated, because if you don't, then you're just another person, hitting the buttons on the computer.
Yeah, and there's a lot of noise out there. I was just reading an article today about the impact of influencers on experts, right? So with influencers posing as experts, it's hard to hear the real experts speak, to hear their voice when they may not be as, exciting or attractive or on social media as much, but they may be a far better subject matter expert in a topic, and you've got an influencer that's just kind of blowing up the internet with some really bad idea.
Yep.
So,
and I think it really requires understanding the one-to-one strategy and implementation, or the one-to-many.
Good.
And experts or people that really exceed and rise to the top are really good at both. Yeah. And that's really rare, because most people think the more people I meet, the more people I reach, the better chances I have of winning their business.
Right.
And then when you get past a certain point in that, at the highest levels, it's more one-to-one. I mean, people don't just get hired because they know somebody. They get hired because they've either worked with people that are similar, or they're highly recommended because what they do is highly valuable and is a little different than the next person who's come along and said, hey, have you considered this or that? I'd rather just get right down to who are you, and where do you think you're going, and what's working or what's not working, and what do you need addressed?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's back up a little bit. So, would you mind kind of giving us a background? Like, you grew up in Greensboro,
right?
North Carolina, South Carolina.
Well, I was born in Syracuse, New York. Okay, let's just get things straight. No, and I'm going to tell you why this is significant. Upstate New York is where my mother was from.
Okay.
And my dad taught at Syracuse University before we moved south when I was 8 years old.
Well, both your mom and dad were educators, weren't they?
Yes, my dad was a professor, very rare stock. He was an opera expert.
Wow.
Ancient opera and modern opera, but he literally became one of the world's experts on opera.
Okay. So
I really learned, and he was the first to ask me, so you're going to start a company and it's going to be named Point of View? What is that? And I'll never forget it, because it was on the front porch of my new house with my new wife, and I'm like, okay, Dad, I'll explain it to you. But I wasn't doing anything. I mean, it took me a year or two to really figure it out or
frame it
up. And a lot of people don't know that. And I didn't really work. I saved, and I had a great wife, and we just made it.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the time, if I'd have known what I know now, I probably wouldn't have just waved everything off and gone so far in, because when you do that, you lose touch.
Yeah.
But entrepreneurial activity really requires that to some degree.
Well, how did you? So we're going to get to that point of view piece.
Yeah.
But how did you get there? So, what did you study in school? What did you do out of college? And
Yep. I was a journalism major.
Okay.
And the who, what, where, when, why, how.
Yeah.
Really is the foundation of everything.
Sure.
When you look at your business or any business, I mean, if you don't know exactly what it is, you can't really carve out what you want it to be or what it should be. So I use that. The journalism, the reporting is significant.
Yeah.
I worked with reporters when I was in media relations, PR. And I will tell you, there's still reporters today that I've stayed in touch with that will just get right to it.
Yeah.
And that's a lagger. I mean, it's no longer a leader. It's a laggard.
No, what do you mean by that? What do you
mean
by
all right. So there are journalists that have retired even who wouldn't put up with half of the lies that are going on today. I mean,
gotcha. Yeah.
When I had that second operation for my glioblastoma, which is probably the only time I'm going to say glioblastoma. But what I'm getting at is there was a time when there wasn't as much fabrication or hyperventilation or whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to call it lies because that's too strong. But the bottom line is, if 50% of what's being reported has another side or isn't fully there, then you have questions that are about truth, truth-driven subjects.
Yeah.
So if you can't get to the bottom of that, like the old journalists did, then what do you do? Because you're not going to find that on the internet.
Right.
I mean, the internet's allowed people to say anything.
Well, I would say it's interesting that, even podcasts have long format news.
Right.
And in many ways, podcasts kind of answer the call for that, where I think people want more context. I think that's interesting that, I think podcasts have blown up and people want the whole story. They want both sides of the story, and they want to hear the context that, news isn't that elegant. It isn't just black or white.
Right.
There's a lot of gray in between that tell the full story.
If you want another example that has proven the change in all this, both gathering and delivery, look at where we are right now. 2 wars that are seismic, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I just read today that in Hamas, 10,000 people have died.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, by the way, it's almost like an oh, by the way subject or topic where, 10, even 20 years ago, it would be primary and there would be fights and arguing and point and counterpoint or point and point of views.
Yeah, yeah.
Now it's just, we've got a leadership team. We've got, connection to this. We'll just handle it whatever way we can.
Yeah.
So there's not really any public debate about it, right?
Right.
I mean,
right.
2 wars that have already cost 10,000 lives, and there's no debate about that in the media. That, to me, provides a moment of pause where I just have to stop and seek out friends to talk about it privately, because there's no sense to make of it. Whether you're for war or against war, if you lay out the facts of it, that you can't reconcile that all to truth and a way forward, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't want to dwell on this, but what I want to share with you is when you have a beginning, middle, and end to your life, or you think that way, like I have now, I would like to see a leader come forward and talk about, hey, this may not be the way to go.
Well, it's the subject of the day, right? Should be.
Well, all right. So this is how it parlays into my business. If you want, if you want me to do that,
sure.
Because there aren't many people that think this way or would bring this subject up. What I say, and I've got a prospect that I'm talking to who's a senior level leader, and I'm like, you might want to think about, company driven things that are going on that you can kind of espouse what we need or don't need, because you're an accomplished leader, right? And if you want to be tapped into what's really going on, then, what's your view on this? What's your view on that? Because we've seen over the years, look at Dimon.
Yeah, Jamie Dimon.
So Jamie Dimon has a really strong point of view on pretty much everything, including most emphatically his business and how people operate, and how they should come to work or not come to work.
Yeah, been very outspoken.
Yeah, and the thing is he's really trying to push an overall agenda or an overall message, but at the same time, he's really tapped in to where the world is or isn't, because he could actually talk about things that were happening today that had impact on businesses that might not even, consider that to be impactful. Well, they are, because people look to that, and they look in those places for leadership. So it all comes back around. If you don't keep up with stuff, if you don't have a passion, you were asking me about passions. I have a passion for truth, and I have a passion for reporting that sheds light on things that we should learn about, like we just talked about with the wars.
Yeah, yeah.
I think if you don't understand that stuff, it's pretty hard to lead effectively.
All right, so we've kind of jumped ahead pretty quick. So
okay.
Let's just that's all right. So
I like trying to get ahead.
That's right. So
straight ahead.
Jerry Roach.
Yeah.
Classic.
All do.
Classic line.
All do.
So I want to I want to nail down your background.
Okay.
Because people listening, they don't know you, right? So
okay.
So you started off in PR.
No, I started off in journalism.
Journalism. Okay.
I literally came to Atlanta 33 years ago.
Okay.
And I did an internship at Hill Knowlton.
Okay. Which is what?
Hill Knowlton's a pretty major PR firm.
Okay.
And that was back when there was so much strata and so many well-dressed people doing all kinds of things. And there were accounts all over. I mean, it was a lucrative business.
Right, right.
And then even that business has changed a lot. But what's interesting is it always helped people acquire the experience they needed to go work at other companies that didn't know how to do things.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I view it in retrospect. I reapplied the journalism degree. I went and worked as an assistant editor for a publication called National Real Estate Investor.
Okay.
And I made maybe $16,000 a year. So I lived like a punk in Atlanta, which was pretty expensive compared to Greensboro, North Carolina at the time.
That's
right. But I had a good time, and I lived in the Virginia Highlands, and I really just enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I had a great woman who became a great girlfriend and then wife.
Okay.
So, I mean, it was just a series of steps. I had a place down in the Highlands, and then I moved in with a girlfriend up in Dunwoody. Right after they built all that, road out, the 400.
400, yeah.
Which was ushered in, largely by Taylor and Mathis.
Okay, all right.
And I worked with them later as a consultant, so it was kind of neat.
Well, okay, so you did some PR, you did some editing, and then you got.
Well, then I worked for agencies
sure.
for about 8 years, and that was really key because
that's some real teeth cutting there.
Yeah, I worked for an independent agency that had a leader by the name of John Knapp. He is currently the president of a college in Pennsylvania, and super guy, smart, but he really is a product of change too, because he took that business and then he acquired degrees and has become a university president following a PR career. So you don't see that very often. But that inspired me because I think the world really, and I quoted change one time as an account executive, and everybody went, "What are you talking about?" But I mean, I really think it matters. I mean, I think there are moments where careers are made by change.
Oh, sure.
And how you respond and how you act, that art versus science approach.
Sure.
Because if you have art plus science, you're going to do well. If you just have art and no science, you're not going to be able to even pay bills.
That's right. Yeah.
But if you have too much science and not enough art, you become technical.
Right. A lot of strong technicians have been extremely successful entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
But they haven't done it by themselves, But they can't do it alone without the help of what I would say is artists, right? People like,
You need both.
You need both.
Right.
Okay, so, and then you left agency world to industry.
Right. I went to Heidrick & Struggles where we met.
That's right.
And it was the year 99.
2000.
2000. Yeah. And I stayed until, I think, 2001 maybe. And I went off on my own.
Yeah.
And that's when I started Point of View, which is kind of hard to process sometimes because that's 20 plus years.
Yeah, so let's stop there. So you, Heidrick, global consulting, executive search headhunter.
Right.
And we worked there together.
Great people, great brand.
Amazing time.
And even more superior now than they were then.
Yeah.
Great brand.
So that was a pretty cush, high platform, exposure to CEOs all over at least North America. I don't know if you were doing global stuff. You were privy to ongoing searches, the executives that were in the pipeline to be considered for the next.
The phone would just go off every day with people that represented people that were important.
So you started Point of View in 2003. So walk me through the decision process you had for why you would leave Heidrick & Struggles. Just an amazing platform to do your own thing, by yourself. And
it's
what
funny.
What it is you did.
Yeah, all right, so let me clarify. Before I went entirely out on my own, I went to the Atlanta Chamber of Commerce. They had a new head of communications. Her name was Laura. I can't remember her last name. But Laura was supremely qualified and good and funny. She had a great approach. And we've stayed in touch. But what's funny is I only lasted 6 months because it was the first time in my career I was yelled at about something. And it was an assistant to Sam Williams.
Oh, Sam Williams, yeah.
Yeah, so he had there was a guy named John something, and something got screwed up, and he just, I'd never been laid out like that. I've been yelled at, but the guy who yelled at me at Hyder called me because I was at a funeral for my grandmother, called me to apologize. So that really lifted the situation. And I just remember going, that's how people really get defined sometimes.
Sure.
But what I'm getting at is when you recollect these moments or these times, it's stuff like that always stands out. What did somebody do when the pressure was heightened?
Sure.
Or there was something really that you had to act the right way. And if you don't act the right way, that's much more memorable.
All right. So you've been at Point of View for 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're going to take a break now because the train's coming.
No, let's do it through the train.
Let's just see what happens when this train.
Yeah, they don't need to listen to. No, but I love the name because I think how I came up with the name at the time was pretty similar to a train. How long is that train?
All right, and we're back. So I knew we couldn't get through this without a train coming.
Yeah.
Okay, so 20 years into Point of View.
Yep.
And you've had some pretty dramatic.
23 years.
23, but who's counting? I guess you are.
Yeah.
But okay, 23 years of Point of View on your own,
right.
and I know it took some years to get successful. You grinded it out for the first 5 or 6 before you really got a meaningful client base.
Yeah.
If I
did.
recall
Well,
correctly.
it's always
grinding.
Well, when you're a niche, what I've learned about being with a big company and doing well in a big company and trying to claim that I'm doing well in a big company.
Yep.
People are really good at that, and there's, more prominent consistency, with salary and what to expect. And,
yep.
You can plan out your year if you're with a good big company making X, right?
Right.
When you're on your own and you're a little contrarian or a little not people have called me every name in the book, but there's traditional and non-traditional, I guess is the best way to say it. So when you're non-traditional, when you're driven by change or at least exploring that there might be some change, and that's what's either not helping or hurting.
Right.
More progress for a large company or someone who's responsible for that large company. That can be a pretty lone lane.
It is
to occupy, and I've learned that over time. I didn't really accept that in the early days because, a lot of the things that I stood for that I tried to propel were always challenged because it was change. Mm-hmm. And when you're a change-driven person, there's plenty of opposition. I would call it the 90-10 ratio. 90, and maybe it's 95% today because after COVID, there's been, if people would just accept how much change there's been as a result of COVID, and in business point of view has always been a challenge too, because there's so much that in business that needs to be either kept under a rug or reshaped or refashioned to find a better way.
Yeah.
But nobody wants that broadcast, or transparency is, not something that always takes precedent. So I don't know. I think we got a ways to go.
Just we're going to kind of take a turn here. So
Yep.
Over the last few years, you've had some significant life changes. And you can elaborate on those if you want to.
Right.
But, the audience needs to know that they have been as significant as it gets in a life.
Do you want to take them off?
You can. Go ahead.
Which ones do you perceive as major? Surgeries, divorces.
Yes.
Change.
Yes.
Health.
Yes. all of those.
Is there anyone that stands out though?
Well, your current health condition has.
Okay. We were going to censor this or.
Well, you've already said it, so.
Right. I'm guilty here.
You are. Okay. So.
I'll pay extra.
But the point of all that is, in my opinion, is it reframes your life in a lot of ways. It reframes purpose. It reframes time. It reframes what's important. It reframes relationships. And I've seen that in you in the last 2 years since you've been going through this. And
what's the chief change characteristic, do you think?
I think it's been your relentless pursuit of truth in people's lives.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about, the CEO next door. I'm talking about the friend that you're sitting in front of.
Right.
That you're just not going to ask, "Hey, how you doing?" and they say, "I'm fine." You're like, "Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Let's talk about football." So what you do is you go, "No, I'm going to need more. I want
do
more."
I?
Like, yes,
do I
you
say
do.
That?
Yes, you do. You don't say it that way, but you dig in.
Well,
like,
the reason why I challenge
what's going on
is because I've determined that that's not only a key interest or a natural kind of ability that's brought me a lot of satisfaction, or like if somebody tells me something they haven't told anybody else, I don't really take it as a secret as much as I do, hey, guess what? If you are a believer too, 3 people heard this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just go, maybe that'll be that actually always gives me hope that if we extract something, there's another person present, or God, or both, right? Then maybe this will just go a different way, or maybe it'll go forward. And I've seen that through work. I don't know if you know Rome Howard. He's
no, I don't.
He's a CBS producer. He's been
a
CBS producer for years. And I worked with him at a time when he was trying to get out and do something new.
Wow.
And what he really discovered through the process was, I was really designed and made to be a top producer. And he still is. Like, you can turn on 60 Minutes and invariably the screen comes up and produced by, Rome Hartman.
Yeah.
And I just go, he views it, and back to point of view, right? His point of view was I failed. I wasn't able to get a presidency outside of,
Really?
Yeah, outside of being a media producer for a top network.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's how I perceived it, because he went from active to I'm done.
Right.
Instead of a beginning, middle, and end, there was either a way to score or not score. And
Gotcha.
and I really see that trend hopefully changing, not because of COVID, but because of change in response to COVID, where people are weighing not just pros and cons, but where will this really take me on a high, medium, and low basis.
So how is your and you're still doing this consulting.
Yeah.
And you're clearly passionate about it, and you have a point of view, which I love.
Right.
Has it changed over the years, regardless of life events or because of life events? Has your passion for this work, for this calling, has it changed?
Yeah, it has in a major way, and I'm not as geared to it.
What do you mean?
Well, I think, as I explained to you what it originally was, or what it truly represents in a marketplace, I think people have associated everything. Like even the work term consultant. I mean, golly, that could be anybody.
Right.
So I've tried to add executive consultant, and that worked better than coach. I think one of the things that made it successful is I just would not give up and and convincing and bringing people to the reality that I saw. What's happened since both my parents going away and family changing, I mean, I have a sister and I are just like, okay, what do we do now? Well, I'm going to keep doing what I do, but if there ever was a time, my significant other, Tina, right, she downsized her business too. So we're at that moment where there could be just something new to do. I want to truly make a difference and then go make another difference.
That's good.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not, wait around for another book project. Good Lord. No thanks.
Well,
sorry.
No, that's all right. I want to share a quote with you. This is one of your favorite quotes.
Really?
I didn't tell you I was going to share this,
but
I want to hear why
I think
you
I
picked it.
know which one this is.
Maybe.
It was meant for you.
No, this is different. So, the power of accurate observation is often called cynicism by those who lack the same power. George Bernard Shaw.
You know what? I think that came from Dad. God bless Dad. He died 2 years ago. Mom died this year.
What about that spoke to you?
Yeah, it's funny. I've had a client that runs a restaurant here who literally is the greatest observer I probably have ever seen in business. And, when you're an observer, you pick up on things that no one else sees. And sometimes that's good, but other times it's like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah.
And if you don't vet it out, I mean, especially in that business, you can go under. I mean, you can get sued or something can happen, right? So I would argue, though, that watching closely or witnessing things or seeing things that others can or won't,
or don't want to,
like high, medium, and low.
Yeah,
that's a good quote. I'll stand by that quote.
All right, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Good quote.
All right,
good.
Last question.
Sure.
Because we're going to land this plane right on the roof.
Oh,
right
it's
here.
only been an hour and 8 minutes.
Yeah, it's good, and sun is down. It's a beautiful night. They've got the lights.
Yeah, I get to put my
strung.
jacket back on.
This is great, and we may have another one of these old fashions. But
whoa,
first,
whoa!
You don't get another old fashioned until you answer this last question.
Sure.
So, would you say that you're consuming your career, or your career is consuming you?
I'm consuming my career.
Very nice. Talk to me about that.
There's no doubt, because I will say this: the greatest thing you can have in work is freedom.
Yes.
Okay? Freedom has a price tag that's unconscious, unreachable, unknowable, almost like, what are you talking about, right? But if you don't have to go somewhere from 9 to 5 or now, call in or however you want to.
Right.
If you don't have to answer to somebody, if you have true freedom, or you don't have the 1099 or the 1022 or whatever it is, you just have a check or some cash that you got to add up at the end of the year with your expenses hopefully exceeding that total, right? The freedom is everything. When 40% of the working force is just working wherever, that's a huge change.
Yeah, absolutely.
And everybody kind of dismisses it or groans about it. But I go, yes, but they're experiencing freedom.
Yes, they are.
They don't have to go somewhere. All they want is somebody present to say, we have X number of employees. Just give us a little bit more money. Just invest in us a little bit more. Freedom rings.
Yeah.
And I really believe that. So it's without a doubt my top favorite quality.
Good answer.
All right, thank you.
Well, Jeremy, I really, really appreciate
So stay
you.
free, my friend.
Yes, stay free. Really great.
I'm not free money-wise.
No.
I'm free time-wise.
There you go. There's a difference.
Great.
But thank you. Thank you for taking the time on Consuming Careers to share an old-fashioned with me. And
I know. We're only having one, and we're not going any further.
That's right. Is okay. But thanks again.
Thank you.
And we'll talk to you soon. Good to see you.
Have a nice night.
Thank you for joining us on Consuming Careers. If you've enjoyed the show, please click the follow button in your podcast app so you won't miss any of our future episodes. And if you have a minute, write us a review. We truly appreciate hearing from our listeners. And as always, I'm Bruce Smith, and you've been listening to Consuming Careers.